All right, hello. So it's been a while since we've been back on Remnant from the Ashes, and personally, I didn't do the game justice, and I didn't do a proper last video. So this might be my last video on Remnant from the Ashes. Reason why I say might be is because honestly, I have some things that I'm gonna be planning to talk about the game and where it's gonna be heading for my channel overall, because I know that a lot of you guys came from Remnant from the Ashes. Anyone watching this video most likely came from Remnant from the Ashes on my previous videos. So I'm going to be explaining a couple things on how they can probably make this game better. Basically like a review-ish kind of thing. First thing we're going to be talking about is the loot system, the looting system. Yes, bosses and everything, right? Obviously, I'm pretty sure if you guys should know or would know, I'm actually a programmer myself, and I understand gaming programming a little bit myself, right? And before before I say anything, I just want to give a proper shout out to the people that actually made the Remnant from the Ashes series on my channel possible. Mainly of them coming from Major Vaughn and Trevor. If you guys are watching this video, thanks for helping me with the Remnant from the Ashes videos. If you guys don't know, those were the two main guys that I've played this entire game with. Throughout the entire series, every piece of accomplishment I had originally came with them being along my side. So I didn't do them justice enough. I didn't give them enough credit. So hopefully, if you guys are watching this, I'm totally more down to play Remnant from the Ashes. But like I said, I'll be explaining the loot system and why this game is really boring really early on. Oh, actually not really early on, during mid gameplay. So yeah, I kind of understand how gaming programming works, and let me just say that their selling point of their game was really intriguing, right? You know, a lot of people really wanted to get this game, not because of the fact that it reminded them of Dark Souls and everything like that, but because of their intriguing selling point that every person's playthrough will be different, right? And that you may get something good and your teammate or friend might get something shit, but then you'll be able to join their world and show off what you have compared to what they have, right? And that was really their main selling point. And don't get me wrong, it's a really good selling point, right? Because obviously that makes you believe that the game is refreshing, and that each time you play the game you're gonna guarantee get something different. But the thing is that even though there's a lot of bosses in this game, you're not guaranteed to get what you want. And the sad fact is that they introduced adventure mode way too late in the game. Because the thing is that the reason why I'm not recording Remnant from the Ashes anymore, and the reason why I'm no longer playing it besides from this last moment, and the reason why I'm not farming, is because, like I said, they introduced adventure mode way too late in the game. They should have introduced adventure mode as endgame content, and sadly, that is the only reason why their game did not last that long in popularity, is mainly for that single mistake. And another mistake that they made, that the reason why their game is not continuing to last in popularity, is because they're doing a really bad job at adding additional items, right? By my account, it's not that hard to add a boss in the game, by my account, right? Of course, building a new area with new enemies and everything like that, and new game mechanics, that is hard within itself, because you have to do a lot of programming, a lot of designs and everything. And it takes a lot of creativity to do that, right? And essentially that takes a while. That could take up to a couple months. But then, from what I heard from other players, apparently they added in a new boss, and this boss drops a shit item. And that's the thing. From what I heard, okay, don't get me wrong. If they did this differently, then that's on my part, right? Like that's my fault, I guess, because I guess I just wasn't made properly aware. But from what I understand is that they added in a new boss when adventure mode came out, and that this new boss drops a shit item. But then that's the thing, right? Like, I've at least completed this game two times, one on normal and one on hard. And when you already complete the game on your first run, it's fun. It's fun because you didn't get all the bosses. So then your first instinct is that you want to replay the game with the loot you have, kill the bosses faster and get different ones and get better items. And that's essentially the end game content right there. But what they didn't realize is that that is not refreshing, right? In fact, it's actually quite the opposite. It's more tedious. And I guess their idea of continuing to expand people's inspiration to continue playing the game was that you would essentially be playing the game as a god again, right? But then that's not really making things interesting. In fact, that's actually quite the opposite. And like I said, they added in adventure mode way too late, because once I finished my first playthrough, midway through my second playthrough, I got extremely bored, because for the first about 2 to 3 bosses in the game, right? The first 2 to 3 bosses in the game, you were so likely to get the same bosses, like fucking what's his name? The first boss with the bow, right, and the second boss with the cleaver. You're so likely to get those 2 bosses that it's actually practically annoying. And oh, Shroud, that's that bitch's name, Shroud. Okay, yeah, so Shroud is essentially the first boss you will encounter in this game, as long as you don't encounter an NPC as your end game beginning boss, right? And the thing is that with Shroud is that even though he is essentially an easy boss, he's actually quite difficult on the higher difficulties, being that he summons way too many enemies in such a close and inclined space, and that his crowd controlling abilities are way too great, and that his damage far exceeds the minimum amount of damage that he's supposed to do as a beginning boss. And essentially, he is a very overpowered beginning boss, despite being actually quite easy to kill. And the chances to get him are a 1 in 3, and maybe not even, maybe a 1 in 2. So you have a 33% chance to get him, or else you have a 50% chance to get him, depending on your area, right? Because that chance obviously is different depending on how many dungeons you have in your game. So let's just say that on your first way to Earth, you have 2 dungeons. You are practically gonna be guaranteed to get them, and that's what makes the game very fucking boring. Is that each time I had to play through the game, I had to kill the same bosses over and over. It should be that the game recognizes what bosses you're fighting, and that it actually takes in an account to when it reloads your game, it doesn't reload in the same shit. Like, I'm okay with having the same minions in the same surrounding area, but I can't be fighting, like, let's just say that this game has a total of 8 bosses you fight. I can't be having 5 or 6 of those bosses being the exact same bosses I already fought. And the one point that me and my friends got mad about with each other was that it is very fucking painful to have to kill a boss differently to just get a different part. And what I mean by that is that, like, for one of the world bosses, right, for the dragon and shit like that, when you kill that bitch differently, you get a different piece. You cut off his tail, or you shoot out his core, or you deal damage to his head. Basically, kind of like Monster Hunter. If you do damage and you break off a certain part of a monster, you're guaranteed a certain part. And that is not a good selling point. I think they might have thought that would have made things interesting, but no, that's actually a real pain in the ass. I really rather not have to fight the world boss differently just to get a different part. That's not really something that sells me properly to the game. In fact, what would have made it more interesting was that it would be a different boss with different fighting styles. And I would have to kill that boss differently because, well, it is a different boss. And that is a very bad thing that they did in their game, and that is what makes it really boring really fast, is because out of, like, all the bosses you're fighting, a very good percentage of them are going to be bosses you've already fought, and essentially that is just very boring. And I'm saying essentially a lot. I'm going to try and stop that. One of the good selling points of this game is obviously that it was fun. It was really, really fun, and it's as simple as it is said. You know, like, they did a good design for your first playthrough, right? Like, bosses were fun, everything was difficult, but also easy if you were skillful enough. and essentially you always had a chance to kill the boss unless you were fighting the end game boss very early on before they fixed it. Alright. And like I said, when you go through your second playthrough, essentially you're really just out of it. You're done for, right? And unless you're a really hardcore dedicated fan that loves to farm for every single thing in the game, you're not gonna find this game that much interesting. And I feel like one good thing that they should have done, that I don't know why they didn't do apparently, was that apparently they only added one boss at a time, and that's not good. That's not good. They already have the maps. I don't think the maps are the problem. I don't think they need to create any more maps. They already have plenty of maps with plenty of ways to change it, right? You know, there's plenty of things to do, right? Each map is gonna be similarly different, but also the same, right? And I think that's fine with everybody. But then, you know, if you're just gonna waste your time fucking creating a new map and then only adding one boss to that map, or potentially even just only adding one boss, then that's practically horseshit, and it's very lame in my opinion, right? For game developers to be doing something so weak for such a good game that came out. And obviously Remnant from the Ashes was praised as one of the best games of its upcoming years, right? Yet for some reason, with so much acknowledgement and so much fan support, they for some reason felt it needed to only add one boss. And I know I'm complaining a lot about this specific thing, but if you guys can understand my perspective, it is not that good. Like, you know, it's not exactly a good idea. And sadly, that's just the real fact of it. You know, and not only that, but what turns me off in this game is that why should I have, like, even if they did add in one boss and their idea was that players are gonna want to rerun a certain area over and over until they get that boss and until they get that decently shit item we made for them, you know, why would I do that when I already have some of the strongest builds and some of the strongest weapons in this game? Essentially, something they should have figured out is that some players in this game exploit the amounts of items and strength boosts that this game provides, and what they don't realize is that players essentially can easily kill their final boss and easily kill their other bosses with a weapon such as the hunting rifle. A beginning weapon is able to easily kill bosses in this game with the proper build, and that is something that they should have realized. Why would we farm for something that is weaker unless it makes it interesting, right? You know, essentially that's what they didn't think about. And I guess in their minds, I'm not gonna try and interpret what they were thinking, but from my understanding, what they probably thought was that just because we add in a new boss with a new item, they're gonna desperately want to find that item. No, that's not the case, right? Unless it was your first playthrough, maybe that would be the case. But in my case, that's not the case. I have this bad boy. You know, I can easily kill a lot of enemies with this weapon right here, and I can easily crowd control, and I am very strong in this game. Why would I want to farm for any other weapon? And that's the thing. On your first playthrough, if you are lucky enough to get some of the best bosses in this game that drop some of the best loot in this game, why are you wanting to, you know, obviously if it's your first playthrough, then obviously you want to go through the second playthrough strong as shit. But then if you get good stuff on your second playthrough, why are you willing to do a third, you know? And that's even said for being on the first playthrough. You know, if you get good stuff on your first playthrough, why would you even be willing to want to play again unless you're getting stronger? And that's their thing that made it tedious, is that to get the stronger materials in this game, like the refined iron and everything like that, you needed to go on hard difficulty and practically nearly finish the game before you start getting those materials. And that is a huge disappointment, because it's a lot of unnecessary farming for such a weak weapon, right? You know, and not even that, but even if you are farming for a good weapon, you are trying to get materials to make your weapon ever so more stronger, why should you have to, you know, progress through the end of the game just to make it stronger, just so then you can replay the game as a god? You know, if that would be the case, then you would have might as well just added in god mode or something like that. And with the fact of them adding in adventure mode in way too late, by the time on my second playthrough, like I said, I was already bored because I fought the same 4 bosses in a row before I actually got something new. And like I said, if they added in adventure mode as endgame content, then essentially it would be so much better, because then at least with that good gear, you feel that it would be fun to have to be able to get those weapons. The players that are already gone are gone. They're not coming back. And the reason why they're not coming back is because they don't feel the need to. They don't feel the need to come back to a game they've waited too long for. And that's exactly it. That's exactly with me and my friends. Right? We waited way too long to be able to get the shit we want, and we waited way too long to want anything else. And essentially, our hunger for adventure and for farming in this game died out very fast the moment we were on our second playthrough. And sadly, that's Remnant from the Ashes. So sorry if this seems more like a rant video, but like I said, I didn't really do this game justice. I didn't really explain why I stopped recording it. If they add in like 5 bosses in a row and something's actually good, then please do let me know in the comment box, because then obviously I'll hop back on there with my friends. But until then, until there's something actually worth coming back to for Remnant from the Ashes, me and my friends are just not gonna waste our time playing this, and that's just to be honest. So sorry guys, but this is probably gonna be the last Remnant from the Ashes video. Like I said, thank you to everyone who helped me support the game, especially Isaiah and Antoine. If you guys are watching this video, you know, thank you for everything too, and Major Vaughn and Trevor. So hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys for whoever has watched all my Remnant from the Ashes video for sticking by. Obviously, don't leave the channel, because there are gonna be way more interesting things coming up, and hopefully I can get my content moving more out there in a flow, and hopefully I can start creating some worthy videos for you guys. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.